Namaste. I, JVN Dr. MP Sharma, Professor, Department of Physiology and Biochemistry, Faculty of Homeopathy Science, Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. My today's digital version 2.0 topic is micturition. So, micturition is a process by which the urine is voided from the urinary bladder, and it is a reflex process. However, in grown up children and adults, it can be controlled voluntarily to some extent. The functional anatomy and nerve supply of the urinary bladder are essential for the process of the micturition. Urinary bladder is triangular hollow organ located in lower abdomen. It consists of a body and neck. Wall of the bladder is formed by some smooth muscle. It consists of three defined layers of the muscles fibers called detrusor muscle, the inner longitudinal layer, middle circular layer, and outer longitudinal layer. Inner surface of the urinary bladder is lined by mucous membrane. In empty bladder, the mucosa falls into many folds lined by mucous membrane. In empty bladder, the mucosa falls into the many folds called ridges. At the posterior surface of the bladder wall, there is a triangular area called trigone. At the upper angle of this trigone, two ureter enters the bladder. Lower part of the bladder is narrow and forms the neck, and it opens into the urethra via internal urethral sphincter. Male urethra has both urinary functions and reproductive functions. It carries urine and semen. Female urethra has only urinary function and carries only urine. So male urethra is structurally different from the female urethra. Male urethra is about 20 cm long. After origin from the bladder, it travels from the prostate gland, which lies below the bladder, and then runs through the penis. Throughout the length, the urethra has muscle glands called glands of Leiter. Male urethra is divided into three parts: prostatic urethra, membranous urethra, and spongy urethra. See, this is the diagram of the male urinary bladder and urethra. Go through this diagram and you will find all the part of the male urethra. Ureter is there, ureter orifice is there, urethral sphincter is there, spongy urethra is there, trigone is there, neck of bladder, and prostatic gland is also seen here. And now prostatic urethra is 3 cm long and it runs through prostate gland. The prostatic fluid is emptied into this part of the urethra through prostatic sinus. Sperm from vas deferens and the fluid from the seminal vesicle are also emptied into the prostatic urethra via ejaculatory duct, and part of the urethra after taking origin from the neck of the bladder before entering the prostatic glands is known as prostatic urethra, and its length is about 0.5 to 1.5 cm, and this part of urethra is considered as a part of prostatic urethra. Membranous urethra is about 1 to 2 cm long and it runs from the base of the prostatic gland through urogenital diaphragm up to the bulb of urethra. Spongy urethra is also known as cavernous urethra and its length is about 15 centimeter. Spongy urethra is surrounded by corpus spongium of penis and it is divided into a proximal bulbar urethra and a distal penile urethra. Penile urethra is narrow with a length of about 6 centimeter and its end of the external urethral meatus or of the orifice which is located at the end of penis. The bilateral bulbourethral glands open into the spongy urethra. Bulbourethral glands are also called Cooper glands. Female urethra is narrower and the shorter than the male urethra and it is about 3.5 to 4 centimeter long. After origin from the bladder, it traverses through urogenital diaphragm and runs along anterior wall of the vagina. Then the terminates at external orifice of the urethra which is located between clitoris and vaginal opening. There are two urethral sphincter in urinary tract, internal urethral sphincter and external urinary tract. Internal urethral tract sphincter is situated between neck of the bladder and upper end of the urethra and it is made up of smooth muscle fibers and formed by the thickening of the destroyer muscles and it is inverted by the autonomic nerve fibers and this sphincter closes the urethra when bladder is emptied. Second, external urethral sphincter is located in the urogenital organ diaphragm and this sphincter is made up of circular skeletal muscle fibers which are inverted by somatic nerve fibers. Urinary bladder and the internal sphincter are supplied by the sympathetic and parasympathetic diversion of the autonomic nervous system, whereas the external sphincter is supplied by the somatic nerve fibers. Pregnenolonic fibers of the sympathetic nerve arises from the first two lumbar segments L1 and L2 of spinal cord. After leaving spinal cord, the fibers passes through lateral sympathetic chain without the snaps in the sympathetic ganglion and finally terminate to the hypogastric ganglion. These prostaglandinic fibers arising from this ganglion from the hypogastric nerve which supplies the destroyed muscles and internal sphincters. Micturition reflexes is the reflex by which micturition occurs and this reflex is elicited by the stimulation of stretch receptor situated on the wall of the urinary bladder and urethra. When about 300 to 400 milliliter of the urine is collected in the bladder, intravesical pressure increases. This stretches the wall of the bladder resulting in stimulation of stretch receptor and generation of the sensory impulses. Nocturnal micturition is the involuntary voiding of the urine during the night and it is otherwise known as the enuresis of the bedwetting. It occurs due to the absence of voluntarily control of the micturition and it is common at the normal process in the infant and children below 3 years and it is because of the incomplete myelination of the motor nerves fibers to the fibers of the bladder when myelination is completely voluntary control of micturition develops, the bedwetting stops. If nocturnal micturition occurs after 3 years of age, it is considerable abnormal and it occurs due to the neurological disorder like lumbosacral vertebral defects, and it can also occur due to the psychological factor, and loss of voluntary control of the micturition occurs even during the impairment of the motor areas of this cerebral cortex. Namaste. Hope you all are satisfied with the version 2.0 session micturition. If you have any query, please mention in the comment box so that we will have a problem solving live session for you. Thank you.